Smoke detectors have quite a few things to take into consideration. Let's take 2 minutes to learn a little bit more about some of those considerations. Now, when you have smoke detectors installed during construction, they are typically not a necessity. Smoke detectors are usually only installed after construction cleanup is completed. Now, if they are installed during construction for detection in the area, they have to be cleaned and sensitivity tested or replaced after construction has been completed. Where they are installed but not operational, they do need to be protected during construction. After construction is completed, sensitivity testing needs to be done or they need to be replaced. Another consideration that we have with smoke detectors is something called stratification. You see, what smoke does is it will rise until it starts to cool off. Sometimes that happens before the smoke can actually reach the ceiling where most of our smoke detectors are going to be mounted. This could absolutely cause a delay or prevent detection from happening. We don't really see this in most buildings, but it may occur in buildings that have higher ceilings. So here we have an example. The smoke is starting to rise. We have a higher ceiling. However, it's cooling before it can actually reach the top of the ceiling. So what we could do with these particular instances using spot type smokes is you can actually stagger them down, have some of them hang down a little bit further so that you have some at the ceiling and some that are going to be down further so that when stratification does begin to happen, they can still pick up that smoke and have activation. Now, with beam detectors, you might also see stratification playing into an issue here. One of the methods that you could do is mount them on the wall a little bit lower than the ceiling, or quite a bit lower than the ceiling, so that when we start to have that stratification point, that smoke is still within the beam path. Another method that you could do is do a what we'll call ceiling mount. So you'll be able to mount from the ceiling at a lower height and have those beam detectors still be able to pick up that smoke as it begins to stratify. Another condition or consideration that we take into is partitions. If partitions are going to extend within 15% of the ceiling height, they have to be treated as a separate room. Each side of that partition is its own room. Now, the reason behind that is as that smoke begins to plume upward, it cannot spread out the way it needs to if you have those partitions extending within 15%. So, for example, 10-foot high ceiling, if the partitions are greater than 8.5 feet, each side of the partition needs to be treated as its own separate room. Here we take a look at that. Less than 15%, as the smoke begins to plume, it's able to spread faster. However, when we are within 15%, it takes too long for the smoke to be able to plume, and by the time it's able to get out of the way of the partitions, it's almost filled up the entire space.